Okay, I think we can start with at least the introduction. Some of you might know me. If you don't know me, I'm Alex Massa. I'm head of training and development here at CLICKTRUST, and I've been doing digital marketing for way too long. 13 years now. I'm a passionate trainer and also a cooking lover, and I'm joined here by Yannick. Yannick is a client strategy director here at CLICKTRUST, and some say that he's a living ChatGPT. He has answered to almost everything and is our king of analytics, if we may say, and is also a Padot fan. So we will start with what you will learn today and what we'll be discussing, the hot topic of the moment, trying to understand what content mode V2 is, the buzzword of the moment, almost surpassing AI at the moment. We could have named this training AI for concept mode V2 and we will have all the buzzword of the moment. But anyway, the idea is to see what is really concept mode V2. Is it worth the hype or is it just another buzzword? We'll see. Some implementation tips and yeah, some future ready practices that we'll be discussing. It's 12:05, so I think that we've let enough time for people to join, so we will start now. I see that people are continuing to join, but anyway, yes, changing of the landscape of the PPC tracking. The PPC landscape is changing thanks due to the phasing out of third-party cookies. It's not a new thing. If you check CLICKTRUST website and if you checked articles from 4 years ago, a person that has joined this this webinar, an old employee of CLICKTRUST, Jochen, wrote on what we will do when third-party cookies will not work. Did they work in the first place also? So it's not a new thing. Third-party cookies have been dying for a long time, and PPC tracking is still there. PPC is still there. So yeah, it's not a new thing. It's once again a kind of a buzzword. So the big buzzword of the moment is this concept mode V2 in EEA, in the European Economic Area, and mostly in European Union. It's not a new thing. It's not a new European law. It's basically Google adapting to GDPR. They are making the changes so that they are okay with GDPR. It's basically like Apple changing their lightning cables to USB-C so that they are okay with the law in Europe. So content mode V2 is just for Google. It's Google telling us, okay, we need to be okay with the GDPR, so we need to adapt to it. Anyway, Yannick,
yes,
it's up to you to go into the details of what is content mode V2.
Yes. So hello everyone. So content mode V2 is following the documentation of Google, a new approach to user consent. It has introduced it, I think, the end of 2023, but consent mode V1 was already there for a longer time. And yeah, it was not mandatory. So that's the big difference between V1 and V2, is that now Google says V2 is mandatory for certain features to be present and that you can continue to use them. So in the documentation, we also see that, well, it's required advertisers to obtain the explicit consent of users before tracking them, which is in the end just complying with GDPR. This should already be the case. So it's not something new, as Alex said. It's just Google adapting and now really forcing you to first get the explicit consent, and then you can allow, or Google allows you to use certain features. And it has to be applied to the V2 on all the tags in the campaigns. And also, this is applicable to every Google product. So it's Google Analytics, Google Ads, but also the floodlights of Campaign Manager, Search Ads 360, DV360, everything basically that is Google Google owned. Yeah, as we mentioned, it requires the explicit consent of the users before tracking is enabled. So as you can see on the left side, this is our former cookiebot banner, on which you can, as it's is stated by GDPR, opt into either all cookies or some cookies, and then depending on the consent, we fire tags or not. The big benefit of consent mode v2 is that you have, of course, the compliance with regulation. As again, Alex mentioned, it's something that Google needs to comply, and they let the work do by everyone who wants to use Google. It improves data quality and accuracy because there is some part of the modeling of conversions included in the consent mode, but we will go into more details in a few slides. And it also enables to have a more granular tracking of user behavior. But this again has to do with the modeling, of which we go into more details next. There are two types of consent mode implementation. On the one hand, we have the basic implementation, which is, as you can see on the slide, Google tags. So again, very broadly, every Google product that has a tag on your website, they are blocked up until the moment that the user grants its consent. Actually, this should already be the case right now today, because otherwise you're not GDPR compliant. What is new or newer into consent mode v2 is the advanced implementation of, as you can again also see on the left side on the slide, the advanced implementation is actually where you still load the Google Ads tag. So the tag itself is there, it collects the data, but included in the tag, we send the cookie consent information. So whether or not the person has, or the user has accepted a cookie or not. If it's not accepted, the data is anonymized, but still sent to Google. So this really is inside of a gray zone GDPR speaking wise, because we could ask the question, the collection of unconsented data, whether it anonymized by Google, isn't that also tracking? So that's a bit the things that we have to check before we blindly do the advanced implementation. And then, yeah, it really depends the interpretation of your data protection officer, whether unconsented data anonymized is also tracking or not. But so with the anonymized data, there is also something to be able to do. So what we can see in terms of impact on PPC, advertisers can now track in a new and different way the users, depending on consent. And but this still requires a shift towards everything that is first-party data. Server side may be a solution, but we also answer that question later on. But so the biggest benefit of the consent mode v2 in the advanced implementation is actually what is shown here as an example. So we basically have 100 ad clicks, of which we take, to have an easy calculation, 500 people consent fully to all the tracking on your website, and 500 people don't do any or don't give any consent, which means that in theory we can only track 500 people's clicks. And then we can see out of those 500 consented clicks, on top, you can see that there is 50% of conversions measured, which means that what we can see is a 10% conversion rate. But of course, we know that there's half of the data is lost. If we then theoretically go check what the unconsented people are doing, we have a model that runs in the advanced mode, because it can just check. It has the data, but anonymized for the unconsented people. Then the algorithm of Google kicks in and tries to mimic all the behavior of the unconsented people to the consented people to model extra conversions inside of your Google product, which in this case comes to, let's say, 9 extra conversions. So that means that the total of conversions that you will see in your Google product report will be 59. So a conversion rate of 5.9 instead of 5, which is already an uplift of 18%. And then in the backend, there is another, that's a bit, the gray is the 12 unconsented. It's something that you can only see in your own business data. And so that means that the true conversion rate of the unconsented people is 2.4, so that's even higher. So you will basically have 3 different ways to measure your conversion. To recap a bit, so 1 is the consented, 2 is the modeled conversions, and then you still have your backend data as well to prove if it's in the right direction or not.
Yeah. Could a question we also all have is, could server-side tagging help also? Is it really the future?
Server-side tracking, just maybe to just explain what it actually is that we put all the tracking of the data that we send it, as you can see also on the left side, the comparison. So the client-side tagging is what the standard tracking basically is, that we send all the data directly from the browser to the different platforms, and then they interpret the data however they want. On server side, what we do is we collect the data on the website, we send it to a server which is in between, and then inside of the server we can do extra manipulations. Either we can enrich the data, or we can anonymize extra data and actually pick for every single data point, this I want to send to Google, this I want to keep for myself, this I want to send to Meta, because it's also an option. We can do that through server side, so we have way more control over the data that gets captured, which also has an added benefit of if we send everything to a server which we own, it's actually first-party data, which means that everything that is browser privacy is not impacting the data. Also, ad blockers not, because usually ad blockers, they just block the tools they know, which usually is Google Analytics. But in this case, the person that is collecting the data is actually you with the server. So that's a bit the difference, where we can see that it's way less impacted by everything that is ITP, ETP, or ad blockers. So that creates, and then a bit the listing the benefits, a more reliable conversion tracking, and you also improve your data quality and accuracy because you're not impacted by ITP.
Yeah.
And it also makes the cookie lifetime a bit longer since it's not a browser cookie. So also doesn't matter if the person removes its browser cookies, the server cookie is still there. So yeah, for the implementation, I think it's best if we do a demo just to see where can I find that, do I have consent mode already available or not. We have it implemented on the CLICKTRUST website, which I can show you right now.
And Yannick, take over.
Yes. So normally the screen sharing should be active right now.
Yes.
So if I go, I'm in an incognito mode version of my browser. So you have the CLICKTRUST website. I'm in the developer tools under network. There you see everything that's happening on our website that gets sent over or that gets loaded. So it's a lot of things. I think all of our images are there with our name even. So that's me being loaded. But also Google Analytics. So if you type for collect, there are different things being collected. So this collect $V, this is the call that gets sent to Google Analytics, which is the one we are interested in. As you can see, I haven't accepted any cookies yet. But still, there is the Google call that gets done, which means that we're actually also in advanced mode. And then if we read all of this, the parameters we're interested in is GCS and GCD. So those two are the ones we are interested in. For the real people, for the people that want to go real into detail, the GCS equals G100 means that I haven't given any consent either for Google Ads or Google Analytics, which is actually true because I haven't interacted with the cookie banner yet. And then for the GCD one, if you see all the P's, that means that there is a deny that gets sent over. So all of the different placements are for the different components of the consent, which is, for example, ad personalization or ad storage.
Yes.
Those two are included in the GCD. So now if I accept all of the cookies, you see there are 3 new calls being made. And this is the one we are interested in. This sends actually the data for the update. And then this is the new call that gets made. As you can see here, GCD and GCS and GCD have changed by now, which you can see that the G is now 111, which means that I have given both Google Ads and Google Analytics my consent. And the R's in GCD stand for it was denied before, but now there has been an update and it means that it's now been granted. That's the R. If you want to go way more into detail, I really suggest the Simo Ahava article because he really decodes everything that is meant by the 13 R3, 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 R5. He can also help you decode it if you are interested in that. So yeah, this actually means that we have consent mode activated because Google knows that we have given the consent, and then the GCD, which is a new parameter for the V2, also has the detail on what's been granted and what not. So yeah, for consent mode advanced, you can never have a G100 because G100 means that there is no consent given. So if you have the basic implementation of consent mode, you will not see the call being made because your call is blocked by default. So that was the short demo.
Thank you, Yannick. We have to resume that. Also, in the slides, the slide deck will be sent to you afterwards if you want to have consent mode V2. So we've shown you where to check it. You can set it up also afterwards. It's quite important also to double check in your Google Tag Manager that the calls you are referring to are being made correctly. So you need to double check in Google Tag Manager, but this will depend also on your Google Tag Manager setup. So it will differ depending also on your CMP, on the types of tags and the type of consent mode you need, basic or advanced, and the data you'll need. So a GTM setup will be different for each and every one of you. Really important also, monitor consent mode V2. We know that it will have an impact, and yeah, consent status and update settings are going to be changed. So it will have an impact on the data you will be receiving and data that you will be able to use. So to try and sum it up, some essential tips for the implementation. Just first check your CMP and if consent mode V2 is activated. A lot of CMP like Cookiebot, OneTrust are Google OK and Google ready and consent mode V2 ready, so they will be activated automatically. So check if you have a CMP that is Google ready and consent mode V2 ready, and if it has been activated. Second step, as I mentioned, yes, adapt your tag manager if necessary. Check what is being set up and if it's set up correctly. The third point, determine whether you need basic or advanced consent mode. depending on your line of business, on what you need. Do you have an e-shop and you rely a lot on retargeting? Then maybe you could work on advanced consent mode. If you work, I don't know, in the insurance or the banking industry, basic mode might be the best choice. Pharmaceutical industry also, because retargeting and remarketing is not really allowed. So yeah, you need to determine whether you need basic or advanced. Fourth point, monitor the impact of your concept mode V2. Does it impact my campaigns? Does it impact the data that I have? Or the basic concept mode that used to work up until now is okay? Then prepare for server-side tracking. We know that the cookies are dying, that they are going to be phased out. When exactly, I don't know. If I knew, I probably win at €1,000,000. So we don't know exactly when they will be phased out totally, but it's important to prepare for server-side tracking. You cannot rely on server-side tracking 100% yet, but it's prepping and working for the future. If you not already embrace micro moments and new attribution model technique or things like that. So in conclusion, by adapting consent mode V2, enhanced conversion, server-side tracking, Facebook KPI, and all those things, your conversion modeling, you're feeding better quality data to those algorithms, but be aware that it's just a walled garden. You're just feeding a walled garden. If you want to have a good and post-cookie, if I may say, view on your strategic planning, on how you should monitor your investment, your media, on how your performance campaign are working cross-channel and all that, as we've been saying at ClickTrust for years now, you should focus on new ways of monitoring your campaign. One of them is micro moment. Another, it could be media mix modeling, surveys, effective assessment of each channel, stopping a channel, putting it back on. Do you see an impact on your campaigns, and so on and so on? So that would be our conclusion on this consent mode, on this cookie apocalypse that people are mentioning. If you have already used the ClickTrust way of working by using micro moments, by using other attribution techniques, by knowing that Google, Facebook are walled garden, and that they don't provide all the information, you should be ready for what is coming next.